Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for tuning in to the webinar series organized by the Center for Professional Selling at Ball State University. My name is Deva Rangarajan and I am the Director of the Sales Center. In keeping with how we've worked with previous presenters, it's my pleasure to welcome Chip Helm, who's a National Sales Manager at Cook Medical. But more than that, Chip Helm is a great supporter of our Sales Center, and he donates his time generously to come and give sessions to our students and talks to them about all his experiences that he's had in his professional life. And interestingly enough, during one of his last visits to the school, he was talking about certain aspects of sales which were pretty interesting, where he was talking to young students about how are certain things that they have to do, what is the wisdom that he's had over the years that he shared with them, what is the wisdom of running a sales career. And on top of that, he talked about something that many people do not associate with salespeople. That is, salespeople need to be humble. They need to show humility in order for them to build relationships. So we thought, why not get Chip over here and share some of his wisdom with the audience about what are some things that he's learned over the years about being successful in a sales career, and also this concept of humility. So, but again, one step at a time. Chip, thank you so much for taking the time off your busy schedule. I know that you have a day job that is pretty demanding. But if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what is your background, and how you got into sales?
Well, that's a great question. I didn't know anything about sales about 32 years ago. Actually, I went to dental school. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to go to dental school. I wanted to have a white picket fence, get married, have 3 kids. Well, I have 3 great kids. I have a wife, but I didn't go to dental school. I did go to dental school, but I didn't complete it. I found out that I didn't have much of the hand-eye coordination enabled to go to dental school. So what happened is one of my mentors, Bill Armstrong at Indiana University, where I went to school, said, "Hey, I've got this great company for you called Cook Medical, and this thing called sales. You want to go into sales?" I said, "Sales? What's sales?" Because back then we didn't have any classes, and we weren't taught that kind of stuff. So that was my journey. That's how it all got started 32 years ago. And to be honest with you, I've never had a job in my 32 years. I fell in love with it early on, and it's been a journey ever since.
It's interesting. You said you stumbled into sales. A couple of things. You stumbled into sales, and the second thing is it doesn't feel like a job. It sounds obvious that you love what you do. And is that the reason why you decided to write a book after 32 years in the field and say, you know what, all the things, all the wisdom that you've had over the years, is that something that you wanted to share with the audience? Is that why you decided to write a book on the wisdom of sales?
There's a couple things here. One is about 10 years ago, I was sitting around over Christmas with my kids, and I said, you know what, I feel like I got some things to share with people, and I'm going to write a book. And he said, yeah, Dad. And 10 years later, it's come to fruition. I mean, I've been wanting to do it, and I finally said I'm going to do it. So, yeah, it took that long. It's been a journey of I could say very interesting journey, but yet this is what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And is the book that where you talk about your wisdom about sales, is it based on your learnings from your life, based on what you've observed, or is it also taking not just what you have observed, but also what you've seen in other people that you think are great characteristics of great salespeople?
I think I would say both. I'd say really that I've things that I've observed, but more importantly, things I've gone through. There's nothing in these books that I've written that I haven't gone through myself, and I haven't taken the test and done it myself. I can't get up in front of people, and I can't share stories if I haven't gone through it myself. So yeah, and then the other thing is, it is through observations and watching people, and hopefully through my experience of being around for 32 years and being in sales. And I just love communicating with people and sharing with people, and I think that's what I just enjoy doing.
Actually, one of the things you have, your book talks about various aspects. I'm talking about the one where you talk about wisdom that you want to impart to salespeople. The first one is, what would you advise somebody who's just starting a career in sales?
You know, something, I think you just got to be who you are. I think that you've got to have soft skills. I think you've got to develop that genuine characteristic and that sincerity with people. I always say it's not what you say to people, it's how you say things to people. And that's what I mean about soft skills is, treat people like you want to be treated. Because really everyone's in sales. I mean, I call what I call chipisms, you know, that I use a lot. And when I'm talking to kids and I'm out there speaking, and my chipisms are really, you know, messages, these deep messages I want you to remember, that I believe that you should have and take the rest of your life. And I do believe this, that everyone's in sales. It doesn't matter if you're in IT, it doesn't matter if you're in marketing, it doesn't matter if you're an electrician. We're all in sales because we're either selling a widget, we're selling ourselves, or we're selling a product. So I think that's where it begins.
And I like one of the things that you said, of course, is sincerity. Can you stress a little bit more? How can a young person starting out in their career who has no experience, how can they be sincere? And how does it change over the course of their career? What does sincere mean?
Sincere means is doing things with the right intent and the right heart, and put other people's needs and wants in front of yours. Service other people. When you do things for other people, you get tenfold back from people. So don't think about yourself and what you need. Think about what other people need and what they have their concerns and what they want more than yourself. I think that's the first thing on that. The other thing is be kind to people. You can still make tough decisions. You can still be, you know, head of a company. You can still manage a lot of people, but do it with kindness and do it, you know, people, we just don't have enough leaders in this country with humility like that. When I say humility, is treating people like you want to be treated, do it with kindness, do it with the right heart and the right intent.
Indeed. It's good that you mentioned humility because that's the title of your second book, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I really like what you say is that it's about treat other people the way you would like to be treated. And I remember from your classroom is that your sincerity, it does not mean just with the customer, it's also with people within your own organization. Am I correct that that's what sincerity is, just not a show you put on to your customers, but it's also something you need to be doing internally as well?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I believe what you do at home, you do at work.
Yeah.
I believe that you're going to be the same way personally in your personal part of your life as you do as your professional part of your life. So I'll give you an example. I'm always on time. To be on time is to be early. Yeah. Well, I do that in my personal life as well as I do in my professional life. You know, it just things like that, the little things you got to do really, really well. You know, one of my chipisms is less than more. I mean, I'd much rather you know something really, really well, know a little bit really well, versus not knowing anything, and or knowing a lot and you really don't know it very well.
Indeed.
So those are some of the things about that I discuss.
So when this happens, so the other thing that you have is an extension of being sincere is it helps you build long-lasting relationships with different stakeholders.
Right.
Now, what are the other things that you have learned over the years that you want to share with the audience about things you need to do to hold on to relationships, to build better relationships?
Well, I think it boils around to one of the things that I outline in one of my books is the art of networking. How to go out and just put your hand out and say hello and getting to know people. I still have a log at home that I keep people's names in. And I just keep a couple little things about these folks that I remember about them. But I think it's all about the people that you meet over the years. And I think that I always have this thing that if you don't worry about what you sell on Monday, you don't worry about what you sell the following Monday, but you worry if you're working with these people 2 years from Monday and 3 years from Monday. So it's all about building those long-term relationships. You think in the long term, you don't think in the short term when you're dealing and working with people.
And I'm assuming when you say this, that this is over and beyond the normal stuff, saying you have to create value, your products need to be making sure that it delivers on your promises, but over and beyond that, it's about making sure you network, you know a little bit about the person, the person behind the person just placing the order. I think that's what I'm taking away from what you're saying.
No, yeah, I mean, you're right, but you just care about that person.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond that. And here's the interesting thing, is that you treat everyone the same way. So it doesn't matter if it's the ancillary person, it doesn't matter if it's the admin person that you walk into an office, it doesn't matter if it's the, it doesn't matter who the person is, you treat everyone the same way. I've always believed that that's one thing about customers in any profession, any career you're in. Treat everyone like they're kings and queens. And if you do that, it's amazing what people will do for you.
Absolutely. It's very, very interesting. And I think that's a perfect segue into something that you talked about, which I think is a hot topic right now, is if you're sincere, you're building relationships, you're actually building your personal brand. And you talk a lot about building a personal brand. Can you actually say what a personal brand is and why it is important today?
Well, first of all, I didn't know what a personal brand was when I started 32 years ago, and I wish I did. I think I'd been working for Cook Medical about maybe 6, 7 years before I figured out that, hey, I needed to know what my brand is. And it's funny about personal branding. People don't realize that most other people may not think your brand's the same as you think your brand is. And so I think it's really important to make sure that any kind of career you go down the path, and that your brand aligns with your boss's brand, or the person that actually pays you and provides the salaries and the raises and the promotions. You really have got to make sure that you align your brand with those folks. Because I think personal branding, can either, I've gone through 32 years and I know my personal brand's gone up and it's gone down, gone up and gone down. And that's just the way life works. But I think that if you recognize it, you visualize it, you understand it, and you keep working on your brand, there's nothing wrong with changing your brand during the middle of your career. It doesn't matter that you want to do things different in your career. I think it's just really, really important that you recognize that it's an ongoing thing about branding and continually to work with your brand.
But it's interesting you talk about this, Chip. So what is your opinion on the fact that there are certain parts of the personal brand that can change according to where you are, but there are certain parts of the brand that has to be constant. That is, Chip always should be known as a person who's sincere. Chip should always be known as a person who is who's humble.
Yeah.
But those are some things should not change depending upon the ups and downs of a career. Am I correct in understanding that?
You are correct, but you have to understand the real world. The perception is reality.
Yeah.
So let's say you have done something. If someone thinks you've done something in the real world, you've done it in the sense of the word, because no matter if you didn't do it at all. So yes, I can be the most humbled person. I can be the most sincere person. I can do things with the right heart and the right intent. But what happens is perception creeps in. And if someone thinks you did something, you did it. So what happens? You've got to move on. You've got to accept it. You've got to own up to it, and you've got to work on it and just realize that's how things work, and obviously, and that's one of my stories, one of my books, and I talk about perception's reality, and everybody has to go through that. I wish somebody would have mentored me 32 years ago and told me some of the things to watch out for. I always say this, you listen more, you observe more, and you talk less. And I think if you do that and watch your environment, then that will help you get through some of these ups and downs in life.
So if you say reality is perception, right? And there are some people out there, no matter what you do, there's nothing you can do to change their opinions. How do you deal? Again, when you get older, when you get more experience, maybe you're much more well equipped to handle this. But what would you advise people who are relatively young in their careers, and despite their best intentions, they're being perceived as not doing what they're supposed to be doing? What would your advice be?
First, you go to therapy. Just kidding. But honestly, you've got to stand by your morals, your integrity, what you believe in. If you are truly doing the right thing and you're honest with yourself, you've just got to accept the fact that it can happen. But all you can do is watch your environment, be more careful where you are, speak less. As I tell people, watch what you talk about, watch what you say, because you don't know who's around you at all time. If you understand that and you can see it and you can watch around you, I think you will minimize, what goes on around you, and you'll probably have less situations where, you have what I call perception of reality, and you've got to work, you got to figure that out. But mostly, I think that mostly you've just got to stand by what you believe in.
Indeed.
And you can't worry about what everyone thinks all the time. And yes, there's no one more critical of myself than me. And you're going to be critical of yourself, and you always want to improve, you always want to do better. But you know what? I go to bed every night and I say two things every night, and this is in the book too. I say in the book, gosh, how did I do today? Did I do the best I could for my company and for my customer? That's the first thing I say. And another thing I say before I lay my head on the pillow is I say, did I not screw anyone over today? And that's what I want to get across. You can get to where you want to go. You can try to get to where you want to go. And you may or may not get there, but you don't have to screw anyone over to get there. And I think that goes back again to that humility component, to that kindness component, to putting other people first.
And I think it's great that you talk about the fact that you have to see what, you have to watch what you say and everything else. But that makes it that much more harder right now because of social media. And essentially, again, when you have something in the written word can tend to be much more misconstrued than other things. So what would your advice be to folks about maintaining your personal brand, utilizing social media, but also be very wary of social media as well?
I'm not a real fan of social media, to be honest with you. I like LinkedIn. I think that's great for a professional site. Be careful about some of the other social media like Facebook and things like that. I've seen people hired and I've seen people fired. I think that it's overdone. I think sometimes we use it for the wrong reason, social media. I think it's a great place to sell something, or if you got a brand you want to sell or whatever, but it also is a place where you can really hurt yourself. I think it can be good and it can be bad, but I think overall, be careful, how you use it, because once you push the send button on Twitter and on emails and on any kind of social media, it's always out there. So be careful what you say. Again, as I always say, keep it simple and don't bring emotion into these social media events and your comments. I mean, keep it factual, and I think you'd be better served.
Absolutely, especially from a professional viewpoint as well.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, because you could hurt yourself more than you can help yourself. I know it looks good. It looks great, that social media, and look at me. But I think sometimes you just need to sit back and be a little more conservative in your approach, and say less, and you'd be better off.
Now, one of the things that you talk about is lots of people may get into a job, and they get in and they're into the job, and all the time they're constantly worried about how are they going to be successful in the future. Now, you talk a lot about your experiences, about how you dealt with those kind of situations where you're constantly worried about your success going forward, and that affects your day-to-day functioning. Could you share some wisdom on that one?
Well, here's the biggest thing I've learned in 32 years. You may work your tail off, and you may want to get over here, and you work really hard. I'll be honest with you, it's what's meant to be is meant to be. Sometimes no matter how hard you work, you're not going to get to where you want to go. Sometimes, some people ask me, well, I'm not president of a company, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. You can try as hard as you can. But the thing about it is first of all, you got to set goals. You got to try and you got to go for it. But just understand that it may not always work out the way you want, and your career and your path may not go exactly how you think it should go. But that's okay, because be aware that you need to change sometimes, and the sun does get up the next morning. Okay, it's okay. You get up, take a deep breath, things change, the sun will get up, you'll look at things differently, and it's okay. It's okay not to, get over there as long as you've tried to do it, you want to do it. That's what I've learned. No matter how hard sometimes I've worked to try to get to where I'm going, I don't sometimes get there. But here's what happens, is because it wasn't meant to be. There was another calling. Maybe the man upstairs had a different pathway for you, and I think you just have to understand that to kind of be okay with that.
But that is for you, that is Chip.
Yes.
But when you're a manager, when you manage a team of people, and when they're facing this particular challenge, how do you coach them? How do you take them through this difficult time in their life or in their career?
Well, I think you bring up a good point about mentoring.
Yeah.
There's not enough mentors also in this country. You've got to take ownership, and you've got to care about those employees. I've always come from the fact that how can I get you to point B? How can I set you up for success? What do you want to do in your life? So we put together a plan. Do you want to become this? Do you want to become this? And we'll set up a strategic plan to help you get there. I think it's really important as leaders and managers to always put your employees in a position to be successful. So you always want to get them places. You always want to help them. You want to talk to them. You want to get training for them. You want to set them up for success. So I think it's all goes back to mentoring your employees and helping them get to where they're going and provide services for them. Maybe it's extra training. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's giving them extra stuff to do on the plate. Whatever it takes, but they've got to know that you care enough about them that they don't stay stagnant, that they want to work towards something, and they want to be successful.
It's interesting because when you do it as an individual to help your team, that also helps you go to bed at night knowing that you've done everything possible to help people around you, the ones that you care for, to be the best that they can. I think it's very interesting because it's also not just about you helping them out, it also you help yourself out because you know that you've done everything that you set yourself as a goal for yourself.
I have a sign in my office. You walk in my office and the sign said, you know, what have I done for the DM today? The DM is a district sales manager. What have I done for the DM today? I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. None of us would be in a position if it wasn't for our salespeople. They're on the ground. They're in front of the customer. So what have I done either directly, indirectly? Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe I talk to a customer. Maybe I help them. But the bottom line is it's all about those salespeople out on the ground. So what have I done each and every day? If I've done something that for them, that I'm successful.
It's very interesting because that shows how sincere you are about helping your team, and that is something that I think is a perfect segue into your next book. That sincerity actually leads to a kind of humbleness, your humility in what you think is important. Now tell us a little bit more about the book you're writing on humility. So what made you start working on that?
Well, first of all, if I remember correctly, I wanted to write the book because it's bigger than sales.
Yeah.
So actually, I think the title, and I just got the title, a couple nights ago. I think the title is what? Bigger Than Sales: How Humility and Relationships Build Career Success.
Absolutely.
And so the bottom line is, I wanted people to understand that it's more than just sales. It's more than life. It's life lessons. It's really how do you use humility to drive everything in your life you do. I mean, we talk in that book, or I talk in that book about the relationships, the art of networking. I talk about communicating better. Do you communicate constantly? Do you communicate consistently? Do you work with people? Again, I want to say this, it's not what you say to people, it's how you say things. So it's about developing these soft skills inside this book, and we talk about that, the stories. How do you develop that genuine characteristic and that sincerity, and how do you talk to people, and how do you treat people? So that's how it's all driven around teaching people the art of networking and relationship building and following up with people and communicating better. Communication is it's just not well done out there. It's not. People need to understand how to communicate better, because the more communication you have with people, the more successful you'll be, but it has to be the right communication.
It's very interesting because when I heard you talk about humility, most of the time the perceptions that people have of sales is humility is not something that you associate with sales. There's also a saying which says that nice guys, girls finish last.
Yes.
But if what I hear you say, your conviction is that nice guys and girls need not always finish last, that it's the long run, it's a long game that you need to be working on. Is that something that I hear you say correctly?
Yeah, I mean, there was a president of Cook Medical, Kim Hawkins. He was an ex-COO, CEO. He taught me the golden rule: do the right thing always. Always do the right thing, make the right decisions by our patients, by our customers. So yeah, it doesn't matter about the commission if I'm a salesperson, how much money I'm going to make. Because I'm telling you, if you treat people and you do the right thing, the money will come, as I always say. If you're worried about the money first, then you won't do the right thing when you're out there communicating and working with people. And I just really believe that if you do the right thing, but this has to be from the top down.
Yeah. Indeed.
Okay, it's not just salespeople that need the humility component or have to have that. It's everyone around you needs to be humble and want to service other people and take care of people and take care of the customer.
Okay. Because that is the main challenge for many people who start off in a career. Let's say, for example, there's a rookie or somebody who enters an organization. They fill all the tick marks, they fit with you perfectly, but they come in and you have a humble kind of humility is a cornerstone of your strategy and your culture, but humility is not part of their way of working. How would you deal with it as a manager? Because let's say, for example, you have this is your idea of what people should be. People get recruited, they come in and they don't show the characteristics that you want them to be showing. How do you deal with those kind of situations?
Well, let's step back. Right now, we've set the process right now. When we go through interviewing right now and figuring out the needs and the wants and understanding how to interview the process, which is also dealt with in the book, it talks about one of the things we look at right now is the humble quality. So we'll go through a series of questioning now. So we're hoping we bring less people into the company or the organization, and any company should, that isn't humble. I mean, we've actually not hired people because they're not humble. We ask enough questions to figure out, do they have that humbleness that we're looking for? And so that's what we're trying to look at right now. Do you have good interpersonal skills? Do you have that humbleness to you? Do you have, usually people who aren't humble will tell you that they have no weaknesses, or they'll use the I word all the time and not the we word. There's simple things that we can look at and observe and see if someone is humble. So that's what we do from before you come in now into the company, whereas before we didn't figure that out. But as you say, do as actions speak louder than words. So as a manager, and you're trying to be, if you're humble and you treat people them well, then they're going to only watch you and they're going to do what you do, and hopefully that will transcend and they'll become more sincere, more genuine, because they'll watch you do it. There's an interesting comment. There's a company in Bloomington, Indiana named Curry Auto Dealership, and he wrote a book recently, but he had an interesting thing. Interesting comment in his book, and I always remember that. He treats his employees, okay? He treats his employees like he wants his employees to treat the customer. You get that? He treats his employees to such a level of kindness, because to show them that's exactly how I want you to treat the customer. And I believe in that. I think if you treat any of your friends, your colleagues, whatever, like you want to be treated, then in turn they will treat people the right way.
I think one of the things which struck me when you were talking of humility was the fact that how does humility translate into your personal life? Because you said earlier that what happened in your personal life is going to come to drive you and your performance levels in an organization when you go into your workplace. How does humility translate into a kind of a work on the family balance as well?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I talk a lot about in the book about that work-life balance. I talk about, how you work and then how you control the rest of your life and how that blends in. And obviously, if you don't have a really good family, it's hard to have a good work balance. I always had someone there at home. My wife was always there when I had to work and go out and try to build a business and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the balance. You have to have a good family support around you. And that's the humility that comes out, because I'm honest as the day is long. And so, if I need to get out there, I need to work, I need to do some things, I have that support behind me that knows, hey, he's trying to do the right thing. I think it's, when you say about this humility at home, you try to treat your family and treat your friends just like you treat your customers. And that's not always easy with the stress of our lives and how we do things and those kind of things. But I try to be, what you see is what you get when you talk about myself or talk about me.
Absolutely. And I think at this point in time we're running out of time, but I'm sure that for the audiences, if you're interested, that there are 2 books that Chip is coming out with, and they're going to be released. There's going to be released on the 28th of June. And if you're interested, please do let us know, and then we'll connect you to Chip and give you access to the titles of his books. Thank you, Chip, again for taking the time off your busy schedule to come and talk to us. And again, thank you again for tuning in, dear audience members, and stay tuned for the next part of the webinar series.